Hello and welcome to coverage of Pro Tour Theros here from Dublin. My name is Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Brian Kibler and Zach Hill. We've got quite a feature match here, gentlemen. We have Kai Budde on the left, you see him there, versus Patrick Chapin. They were teammates testing for this event on Team Star City Games, and we are underway here. Zach, what is Patrick playing?
Patrick is playing a kind of black-white mid-range deck. It's like half of a white weenie deck and half of like a black-white control deck. It's got Soldier of the Pantheon Precinct Captain, and then a bunch of 5-drops and removal spells. It's one of the 2 decks Team Star City Games came up with, and one of the 2 decks that was undefeated on day 1.
All right, now Kibler, we've seen quite a few Devotion decks out there. Tell us a little bit about Kai's deck.
Well, Kai's deck is a mono blue deck that uses Devotion primarily to activate Thassa, God of the Sea.
Okay.
Many of the Devotion decks in this field have specifically tried to abuse Nykthos, but this deck only has a single copy of Nykthos, which you can use to power up cards like Cyclonic Rift, but doesn't really rely on it nearly as much as the other decks.
Okay, yeah, you can see that he's kicked things off with a Cloudfin Raptor and a Frostburn Weird.
Yeah, and then a Precinct Captain from Chapin's side right now is, again, one of the deck's semi-aggressive starts, backed up right now by a Hero's Demise, or a Hero's Downfall, and that's going to be a 1/1 token for Patrick.
One of the great things about Precinct Captain is it plays offense and defense both very well. Against creature decks, the fact that it's a 2/2 first striker can hold off a lot of aggressive creatures, but against control, it's just an army in a can, a single creature that can provide enormous threat.
We saw Ash Zealot play a similar role where it can block well or attack well thanks to his first strike. Let's take a look here at what Kai Budde has planned for the turn.
We've got
he's already deep in the tank.
Yeah, he is. We've got Tidebinder Mage, really, really good in the format in general. There's so many red decks, so many green decks, but against Black-White, you're playing well, what would normally be a difficult to cast 2/2 with no abilities. Still turns on your Devotion, but a lot less exciting than when the card essentially Necrotalls the opponent. So Kai trying to decide, I think, how much tempo he can afford to lose to the Precinct Captain.
Yeah, he's in a really tough spot here. None of his creatures really interact profitably with Precinct Captain until he gets Thassa online, and he's quite a ways away from that.
Yeah, that Hero's Downfall, I mean, just any removal spell is so good against Star City's blue deck. I mean, it doesn't really even have that many ways to protect its creatures. And when Thassa's not a 5/5, it's really hard for the deck to apply pressure.
Yeah, did you see that when you were playing in this event, Kibler, that people were starting to aggressively take out anything that had 2 colored mana symbols that was a permanent?
One of the things that I think is very important about Devotion and reacting to Devotion is being able to use your removal to turn it off. This is one of the reasons that I think that Patrick's deck is actually quite well set up for this field and this matchup in particular. He has a lot of spot removal, and being able to just remove permanents from your opponent's side of the board to turn off Thassa, to turn off Nykthos, that sort of thing, is very, very valuable.
Yeah, you saw him waste absolutely no time killing that Frostburn Weird early in the game with really one of his best removal spells. Instantly, he's just like, that's dead.
Yeah.
I mean, it helped that he was able to get a 1/1 counter out of it. We see him not attacking this turn due to the 2/3 Cloudfin Raptor, but that's just going to set
actually
up.
a 3/4 now?
Oh, 3/4, yeah. I guess it
was
evolved
2/3
to
his
the
turn, yeah.
Right, and then I guess Thassa is what evolved it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Pretty good to have a
correct.
3-mana 5/5 indestructible, but Patrick's Doomblade now going to be able to take that Cloudfin Raptor offline and make Thassa go hang out in the stars for a bit.
Right. We also see that Patrick just cast Thoughtseize to take the last spell out of Kai Budde's hand. A little bit late here, but he'll take it. And like you mentioned earlier, Kibler, a lot of spot removal in Patrick Chapin's deck. He's got a Doomblade left in his hand along with another Hero's Downfall plus an Obsidian Ghost Council. So pretty stacked hand here for Patrick Chapin.
I think Patrick's in very good shape here. He has the, well, this is an interesting attack.
So he's attacking with Desecration Demon and Precinct Captain. I think potentially he's just going to...
Doomblade pre-blocks here?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, now this attack makes sense.
Yeah.
I was like, what's going on? But no, the Doomblade being able to turn off the Devotion for Thassa, get the 3/4 Cloudfin Raptor off the board, potentially allows both the Demon and Precinct Captain to get through.
Okay. And Kai says, okay, sure.
And now Kai's creatures are totally outclassed here. One of the weaknesses of the blue Devotion deck is that individually its creatures are quite weak. It relies on the synergies between your Devotion and Thassa as well as Master the Waves to actually give you powerful plays. But right now he has a 2-2 and a 1-1 in play, and he's facing down a 2-2 first striker and a 6-6. He's in a really bad spot.
Really bad spot. Budde, he took all the damage, dropped him down to 10, passed the turn back. You see him deep in thought here. He's trying to decide if he wants to keep the card on top. He's using the his Thassa.
Chapin with little table talk. Something that's close. Weird. What could that be? It is interesting to note that these two players did playtest together. They are both from the same team, and they're well aware of each other's deck lists. So Patrick's probably wondering what card could he possibly be thinking about here? What could be almost good enough, but not quite good enough that you definitely want to keep it.
Right, because if it's something like Master of Waves, you're just going to slam it immediately. If it's a land here that doesn't do anything after you've been thought seized, you're like, okay, get that out of here. So there are only a few cards that could cause Kai to be thinking this much.
Interesting. It was a
Biden. Okay, that's interesting.
Right, so does that get him back up? Yeah, it does get him back up to enough devotion to have Thassa active, and it also potentially gives him a way to draw some cards here.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the reason he was thinking about it is, I mean, it's an offensively minded card. It turns on Thassa, and it's hard to pass up an opportunity to do that, but it doesn't really solve the Desecration Demon problem right now. And if he's forced to chump block with Judge's Familiar, which is a card you usually want to be using to attack and draw cards with Biden of Thassa, he's going to, again, lose his devotion for Thassa, God of the Sea.
Well, he does have the option of just sacrificing creatures to Desecration Demon's ability to keep it from attacking. And he does have the Mutavault in play as well, which he can potentially pay mana to turn into a creature to sacrifice to demons so he doesn't lose devotion as well. And there he found the land, which will allow him to potentially activate Mutavault and make that play.
All right, so pretty tight one here for Budde already, and off the top of the deck there, it was a
Desecration Demon trigger.
It looks like he's going. You hear Patrick Chapin going directly to combat.
Would you like to take 6?
And he is just sacrificing the Familiar, which does not yet turn off Thassa, or it does? No, it does not yet because the Biden.
Not yet.
So he has 5 right now. Though Patrick now has the option of playing Hero's Downfall on that Tiebinder Mage, which would clear the way for his Precinct Captain because devotion turns off.
I have to say, coming into this event, if you would have told me that we would see Hero's Downfall hit a Tidebinder Mage that has done absolutely nothing, I would have questioned you. But we are in that position here.
Yeah, he actually doesn't need to use a removal spell at all. Precinct Captain, because of it, his first strike can just attack.
Before I declare attackers after the
there we go.
Hero's Downfall, the mage.
Sure. All right, gets it out of the way.
We're seeing Patrick just playing very aggressively right here. I mean, Kai's at 10 without the Desecration Demon doing anything. He's representing 5 damage. And with that many 1/1s out, I mean, you can just start attacking through Kai's blockers, assuming Kai doesn't have the actual card Master of Waves. And it's going to be hard for Kai to muster enough defense to stay alive through the Precinct Captain. We also see Obsidat in Patrick's hand threatening 2 points of direct damage.
All right, Kai is going to push this card down to the bottom and get a fresh one. Let's see what he's drawn for the turn.
I mean, Thassa just, being a whole mana cheaper than other gods.
It is.
It is another Tidebinder Mage. Again, still no target. Does Patrick's deck dodge Tidebinder Mage completely?
I think it does. Yeah. There's no weird hybrid things going on with Boros Reckoner.
Yeah, that's one of the weird interactions that you get with a Tidebinder Mage is that it hits some decks that you wouldn't necessarily think it would.
Get in there?
Wow.
So he's going to attack with Thassa, God of the Sea. That's going to allow him a draw step here.
Which is...
Oh, he made it. Did he make her unblockable as well? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely wants to be up a card, but I mean, it's awkward that Chapin's at 16, so I mean, it's still a 4-turn clock if all he's doing is attacking with Thassa, and not having the blocker this turn seems a little risky unless Kai's play is just like, I've got to have Master of Waves, it's got to resolve, and I just have to hope Patrick is out of removal spells.
Yeah, I think he might be in a position where he basically just has to dig. From the board here, if Patrick just attacked him, he could block the Precinct Captain. He would have to sacrifice a Mutavault to keep off the Desecration Demon, and he can't just keep that up.
Right.
He needs to fuel his ability to feed Desecration Demon or find some way to deal with it. Some way to deal with it being basically Master of Wave to create a bunch of creatures that he can then proceed to sacrifice for the remainder of the game.
Okay.
You see Chapin, Sin Collector.
So he's going to play a Sin Collector.
Kai appears to have no sins.
He has no sins. He has a Night Veil Spectre, but that is going to stay in Kai's hand.
I mean, and a lot of the time, it's nice to be able to have that card just to have perfect information of knowing that like your opponent doesn't yet have the Master of Waves is still digging to it.
Right.
Could theoretically affect some of his decisions.
All right, now we're going to see the Mutavault play that you described earlier, Kibler. Mutavault gets activated. It's going to get sacrificed to the Demon. The Demon's going to get a +1/+1 counter, but it's also going to be tapped, which means that Kai gets to live another turn here.
I mean, the nice thing about that Mutavault being off the board is that you know your opponent can't rip Runner, Land, Cyclonic Rift, which is basically one of his only other even potential outs from this board situation.
Cyclonic Rift is a card that really hasn't seen a lot of standard play, but feels like it could at some point here.
Well, especially if Nykthosing out huge spells is as popular after this tournament as it is during this tournament.
In between match, we'll get a chance to chat with Kibler a bit about that. He's got he's been working on some pretty sweet Nykthos builds, and he's got one of the decks that he thinks is the best one out in the field here. And it looks like Patrick Chapin is victorious in the first game over Kai Budde here. We'd like to thank Gaming Etc. for being an official card retailer here at Pro Tour Theros. Use a promo code Dublin when ordering on GamingEtc.com to earn 10% off all singles and accessories. For more information, visit GamingEtc.com. All right, let's take a look at some of the interesting and cool cards that we have from Theros. One of them is a removal spell that we haven't seen before. It's Hero's Downfall.
Well, we've seen sort of a version of it before in Dreadbore.
Yeah.
Right.
But it is really interesting, in my opinion, the difference between a 3-mana instant and a 2-mana sorcery. They're kind of capable of doing very different things. I mean, we've seen a lot of deck. One of the reasons Mutavault is so good and such a priority for players at this tournament is so much of the removal in the format is sorcery speed. And then obviously being able to take out a Planeswalker at the end of your opponent's turn when your opponent is thinking that you're going to prioritize attacking it instead of the player can totally change up the dynamic of a combat step. So this is one of the cards that R&D made basically like Thoughtseize to give black a way of dealing with problematic non-creature permanents.
As somebody who's played blue-black control myself before, also mono-black I've played a little bit of. This is a blessing. You know, this is the type of thing where if somebody plays a turn 3 Planeswalker, Domri Raid or something like that, and you just roll your eyes because it's like, this is going to be forever before I can deal with it. Those decks have a hard time putting it up, and this can deal with it even after they've already played it.
I mean, frankly, I think that Hero's Downfall is perhaps one of the most important cards in Patrick Chapin's deck. It's a card that allows you to play a large amount of removal spells in your deck that aren't just dead against control decks.
Right.
One of the problems with playing a deck that relies on killing your opponent's creatures, because that's what this deck has to do. Its creatures are generally weaker, well, unless it's playing as mono blue. Its creatures are generally weaker than the creatures its opponent is going to play, so it needs to be able to get them off the board. And you can't just play 7 Doomblades, but when 4 of them are Hero's Downfall and can kill cards like Jace or Elspeth or Ashiok, it's a really big deal.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I think this deck is so impressive is precisely for the reason you just mentioned. I mean, against control, you have discard spells 4 Thoughtseize and 2 Sin Collector, but like if you're playing against a red aggro deck, like Sin Collector can still take Advent of the Worm. It's still a 2-mana, or it's still a 2/1 body, and Thoughtseize can take whatever.
Creature. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then with the removal, the only dead spells you have in a control matchup, are essentially just the 3 Doomblades. And with 3 copies of Read the Bones, you can usually churn through your deck enough that you're not going to get, it's not like Jund in the old standard where you'll just like have a handful of removal spells that aren't doing anything.
Now, talk to us a little bit, Kibler. So we saw in game 1 that Tidebinder Mage was pretty underwhelming for Kai Budde. Can he take it out and still be able to have enough devotion around to keep Thassa active?
I believe he can. He does have Omen Speaker to bring in. Omen Speaker is quite good against Patrick Chapin's Soldier of the Pantheon as well as Precinct Captain. It gets in the way of both those creatures and lives. I believe he's going to go into a more controlling sort of build of his deck. You look at his sideboard, he has 2 copies of Jace, Architect of Thought, as well as 2 copies of Aetherling. And those sort of cards are, just as we were saying, some of the cards that can make decks like Patrick's have some trouble. He does have those 4 Heroes Downfall, but those can't deal with Aetherling.
That's right, and this will be interesting. We had a deck tech with Metai Zadalkai earlier, and they actually were running Jace Architect of Thought in the main deck as instead of Biden's, basically. They said, well, look, we can get card advantage this way, and it also keeps our devotion count as high as Biden does, and on top of it, it's pretty good against control because they have to plus their Jace while we get to minus ours, and we can grind out a big card advantage. So that could be interesting here. I mean, how would you classify Chapin's deck? Is it a mid-range deck? Like, is it one of those decks that kind of choose what it wants to do?
I think it's a very mid-range deck. I like to think of mid-range decks as decks that generally play cards that can go different ways depending on the matchup you're playing.
You are the authority.
Well, I mean, really, cards like Soldier of the Pantheon. Soldier of the Pantheon is a great aggressive card against control decks. A 2-power, 1-cost creature. It also happens to hold off all of the best creatures in the format. It can block Voice of Resurgence. Boros, well, not Boros Reckoner that well, but Fleece mainline. All these very powerful creatures, it just has protection from them. It's also immune to many removal spells, Abrupt Decay, Putrefy. It's just able to, yeah, absolutely. So it's a great card whether you're on offense or on defense. It can protect you very well or go aggressive. And we were saying the same thing about Precinct Captain before. Precinct Captain, as a first striker, is great at holding off the small creatures out of an aggressive deck like Red, but it also is able to put a ton of pressure on control decks.
Yeah, where you can just play it and say, this is what I'm going to do. I will keep hitting you with this, and you don't have to overcommit at all. All right, so players are taking a look at their opening hands here. It looks like Kai's decided to mulligan his, but Chapin has kept. So Kai on the play, going down to 6 here in game 2. I'll get you guys some updates from the side tables once I get those from you too. I'll give you a quick view of what we have. We have Sam Black versus Matej Zadok. I just mentioned him playing a similar list to what Kai's playing, but some pretty big twists on it. Nico Boney is playing against Paul Rietzel on the side table, and we've also got Reed Duke versus Camille Corneliusen out there as well.
I'm interested to see how Patrick sideboarded too. I mean, we just talked about Soldier of the Pantheon, but it seems a little bit weak in this matchup. I'm also, I don't really know how good Sin Collector is. I mean, I'm assuming there's not a lot of targets, but the ones that you could hit are powerful. And, you know, your opponent, as many removal spells as you have, might bring in more spells after board. I don't really know how this matchup works. How did this sideboard work in your experience, or have you not really played against this deck?
I haven't really played against this specific build of this deck, but the important things against devotion decks are keeping things off the board.
Yeah, it seems like it.
One of the most important things is just being able to spend mana for mana with them, and if you can use a cheap removal spell, particularly to kill something that costs more than it, it's great. So cards in Patrick's sideboard, things like Last Breath and Doomblade and Farika's Cure, those are all great ways to keep Kai's small creatures off the board to prevent cards like Thassa from being able to take over.
And right, especially when your opponent has cards like Bident of Thassa that are going to turn creatures into more cards. If you can get to a point where you just kill literally every one of their guys, their deck doesn't do anything.
All right, we are underway here. Kai Budde kicks things off with a Cloudfin Raptor. So he has the 1-drop. That's a good start for him. Let's see what Patrick can answer with here.
Play about 6 enter the battlefield tapped lands. And hope to not get killed by a Cloudfin Raptor. We see in his hand, he's got Thoughtseize, he's got Soldier of the Pantheon. He could theoretically cast either one. Devour Flesh, Hero's Downfall, Read the Bone, really kind of an ideal hand. He just needs to make sure to get his mana base online.
All right, so he is, in fact, going to kick things off with a 1-drop of his own. You just mentioned this card, Brian. It's going to be able to apply pressure early here.
Yeah, it's not nearly as important in this sort of matchup as it is in many others. The protection isn't terribly relevant, but it's going to be able to apply pressure here as Kai misses his second land drop.
Ooh, this could get ugly.
Wow.
A quick update from the side table. Sam Black versus Matej Zadok each have a game, so they're going to go to game 3 here. Paul Rietzel's up a game over Nico Boney.
Yeah, we see Patrick taking 2 from the Gala Shrine. I think he probably wants to do that so he can Thoughtseize this turn and play an Orzhov Guildgate, setting him up for Hero's Downfall on the 3rd turn if he needs to take out something specific.
Kai's hand is pretty speculative here. He has 3 things that cost 4 or more and only 1 land, and Patrick takes his 2 costs, so he is very far from being able to really do anything.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, Patrick attacking for 2 is saying, all right, if you want to trade with Cloudfin Raptor, that's perfectly fine with me.
Well, he can't. It's actually doesn't even have power yet.
Oh, wow. Wow, yeah. Worst case scenario. Shit.
Yeah. Now, best case scenario here for Budde, he did draw a land off the top and played it. He doesn't get to do anything thanks to that Thoughtseize, but hey, at least stage 1 complete. He's still got a couple of more land drops to hit before things really get rolling for him.
He did forget to say "had it" when he played his second land.
We'll give him a warning.
Missed opportunity. Yeah.
God the Shrine and 2 Thoughtseize.
All right, so that was another Thoughtseize from Patrick Chapin.
Did we see what he got with that Thoughtseize?
I think he took Thassa.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So
that would make sense.
Leaving Kai with 3 things that he's well away from being able to play.
Yeah, he's got a Biden, he's got a Master of Waves, and he has an Aetherling in his hand. And Patrick Chapin, not messing around, kills the Cloudfin Raptor right now and gets in there for 2 more damage.
Yeah, and that makes sense because your Devour Flesh is, I mean, he's going to sacrifice his worst creature at some point anyway, and you might as well allow him to only gain 1 life off of the Cloudfin Raptor as opposed to gaining more when it's bigger.
Okay. All right, Reed Duke versus Camille Cornelissen, also tied at 1 game apiece, so action happening quickly there. Now, a little bit of a reprieve here for Budde. He's not going to be facing any permanents this turn, it looks like. Well, maybe potentially, but it's a Read the Bones for Patrick Chapin. I see that he's already got a Pithy Needle in his hand. He also has... he took both cards off the top, so things looking pretty poor here for Kai, especially considering that cards like Biden of Thassa don't do anything unless you have creatures that can attack.
Right. Kai's just grip here is not very impressive. I mean, if he can cast an Aetherling, that would be sweet, but he's pretty far from that.
He is.
I have to imagine that's what Patrick Chapin had in mind with that Pithing Needle in his hand. Both Aetherling and Jace Architect of Thought are great cards to shut down with Pithing Needle, though it's not allowing him to apply much pressure here.
Interestingly, Budde significantly ahead in the damage race here. Hasn't actually attacked yet, but Patrick Chapin has taken 8 from his combination of lands and Thoughtseizes.
Well, and I do think Patrick wants to Thoughtseize yet again here. It looks like he has a 3rd one in his hand, but he really needs to take that Master of Waves. Otherwise, like, he is under realistic threat of just dying. I mean, Patrick has yet another... I mean, Patrick has several removal spells, but what he doesn't want to do is spend all of his turn casting removal, applying no pressure to Kai, and give Kai time to draw out into Aetherling.
Yeah, this is one of those interesting situations, Zach, where there isn't a ton of pressure on Budde here, and if he's got now a Thassa online that can help him find more land drops. Chapin has been doing a great job of tearing apart his hand and preventing him from really developing his board, but it's also prevented Chapin from developing his own board.
I'm somewhat curious with what Patrick chose to scry with that Read the Bones, because he has an abundance of removal, but he doesn't really have much pressure. And casting Read the Bones there, I think I would be looking for more ways to actually end this game. Kai is in a position where he doesn't have anything in play, and you just need to actually deal damage to him.
Yeah, I saw that he drew a Doomblade off of it. I don't know what the other card was.
The other card was his 2nd Orzhov Guildgate.
Okay.
And he definitely wanted more mana. But I agree that, like, threats are a priority right now. I mean, Doomblade is always going to be good, I mean, for the reasons that you were saying. But at the same time, if you know your opponent's plan is Aetherling, yeah, you've got the Pithing Needle, but that's still 2 cards that you have to devote to answering it. I feel like you do just kind of want any sort of threat right here.
So you think Patrick could afford to be a little more picky there and not just say, well, it's a spell, I'll take it. He wants to go deep and try to find something to actually get pressure going.
I would have been looking for something like a Desecration Demon. I want to end this game. Kai is in a position where he is unable to cast the spells in his hand, and you know that.
Yes.
And what you really want is to just punish him for the fact that his hand is full of expensive spells and he's short on land.
Okay.
That said, I definitely also, I mean, I'm the kind of person, I really don't like to throw away spells on Scry if I can help it, especially a spell like Doomblade, even though it's not helping the immediate situation. I mean, you know you're going to have targets for it. You know your opponent is holding targets for it in his or her hand. So, I mean, I definitely understand the reasoning behind keeping it. But I tend to agree with Brian that, like, your clock right now, I mean, again, you're doing more damage to yourself than your opponent's doing to you right now.
I'm also a little bit suspect of with the cards that Patrick has in his hand, his choice to take Master of Waves with his Thoughtseize. I think that either Aetherling or Biden are actually somewhat more threatening.
Interesting.
Given that he is unable to actually remove the Biden from play, and it's threatening to turn on Thassa, which his removal spells that are sitting in his hand cannot kill.
Right. Like if Kai draws another 2-mana card that isn't a creature or that can stay alive, or if Patrick just has to tap out for something, that means that Kai gets to attack at least once with Thassa, and Patrick's at 10 life.
So Kai Budde has found his 6th land, but he just knows that he can't run the Aetherling out there without another land. So he just passes the turn back. I mean, again, we've said this before, but look at the damage race. It's like Patrick just recently got ahead on it. He's going to drop Kai Budde down to 7 here. Now, let's see if he could find something to add to the board. It looks like not. He's got a land and 3 answers in his hand. You can see it on the side there. Pithing Needle, Doomblade, Hero's Downfall, and a Plains. So things aren't going to change much on this turn, and Kai, he is getting closer. He has the ability here. All right, here's the preemptive Pithing Needle.
Yeah, and I think you really need to play that Pithing Needle there. Otherwise, Kai gets to cast Aetherling and protect it, and you're going to want to Doomblade it because you don't want to get hit for 5 and give your opponent a card. So I think it's important to get the Pithing Needle on the Aetherling ahead of time.
That's right. All right, so Kai taking a close look at that card off of his Thassa trigger and ships it back. I think he drew a Nightveil Spectre there.
Which, certainly not going to get hit with a Doomblade.
That's right.
See here, now Kai actually just gets to cast the Aetherling knowing that he doesn't care about protecting it. It can't be protected anymore.
Right.
So now Doomblade takes it down. Thassa still doesn't get a hit in. It still took Chapin 2 cards to deal with that Aetherling.
Right, that's the thing. And like, you're up 2 cards from reading the bones.
Well,
you're down 2 cards for having to 2-for-1 yourself to kill Aetherling.
He's up on quite a few cards, but many of those are land.
Yeah.
If we look at Patrick's board here, he has 8 land. He's a 9th in his hand. He's in a little bit of trouble here, actually.
Yeah, and here's the Nightveil Spectre.
And right, so Patrick gaining a life off of off the Spectre, which actually matters given that Thassa puts on 2 turn. Wow.
Okay, and so Kai drew another Spectre, and he's played both of them, and all of a sudden he's getting a lot more stable. Thassa is active, very active, like twice over.
Well, that's one of the reasons Thassa is just an incredible card.
Yeah, a heck of a magic card there, Zach. Going to attack in there for 5, draw him a card. Kai Budde at 5. He doesn't have any blockers currently, though.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick is not dead.
Patrick is not dead, and Kai is not dead either.
Yeah.
It's close, though.
Patrick just drew an excellent one in Obsidat here.
Ooh.
That is a hot one.
So that could leave Kai Budde at 1 life here.
It threatens to kill Kai during Patrick's upkeep because he can play the Obsidat here. Hero's Downfall, one of the creatures. That leaves Patrick out of range of just dying to the Nightveil Spectre plus Thassa.
Right.
And the enters the battlefield trigger of Obsidat on Patrick's next upkeep will reduce Kai to -1 life.
All right, so things looking very good for Patrick Chapin here. He's going to start things off with the Hero's Downfall on the Nightveil Spectre, on one of them. And here comes Obsidat. And Kai can't be happy about that. It drops him down to 1. And is there any way for Kai to interact with the interaction of Obsidat entering the battlefield?
I don't believe so. I think
so. He has to kill Chapin right now.
And I don't think there's any way to do that. I don't think he has any way to do 2 extra damage here.
Now, what is the reasoning for using Heroes to Mine on the main phase?
Just in case Kai has something like a dissolve, coming in from the sideboard or negate, perhaps.
Dissolve, negate. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
So things looking pretty grim here for Kai Budde. He needs to find a way to deal 9 damage to Patrick Chapin, and he doesn't really have the tools to do that. Now, is there a chance that he can hit with Nightveil Spectre? Is there anything that he could hit and cast that would matter here?
There's
like a Pithing Needle doesn't do anything. He only has access to blue mana.
Right, yeah. If he hits Soldier of the Pantheon, it's not like any of the cards from Theros that let you cast it with
There's
any
no
color
colorless life gain. I mean, he clearly has to just do it to find out, but...
He's got Biden, but yeah, I mean, I don't know any number of top decks.
I'm just wondering what the top decks from Patrick Chapin.
Right. You've got 2 decks worth of top decks.
Yeah, he does.
You got a trading post in there somewhere?
Yeah.
This is where you want Doxos instead of your Nightveil Spectres. It seems like most situations you'd rather have a Nightveil Spectre, but
Man, letting you attack with your Thassa. Kind of,
Yeah.
sort of nice. Yeah, I mean, the Obstat was just a huge top deck.
Yeah, that
from
was
Chapin.
massive.
It was the perfect card. It was, it actually not only keeps him alive, but threatens to end the game on the next turn. It was the absolute perfect draw for him.
It really was. Now here's a Scry 2 from an Omen Speaker. Those both get shipped down to the bottom of Budde's deck and attack you.
Guys saying like, okay, I'll just see what I can look at. That'll be 2 cards from his own deck and 1 card from Patrick's.
Yeah, so let's flip this one over.
Nykthos, you have an out.
Okay, I actually drew my one Nykthos.
Oh!
If you have Nykthos, I have 1 Freakus Cure.
Goodness!
Oh dear.
Gain 2 life.
Oh, I can survive that thing.
What? I might not want to have said that.
Yeah.
Devour flesh, right?
It's already used.
This is what happens when you have teammates playing against each other. It's like, this is exactly what I can.
Yeah.
You got
Let's see
one.
what he comes
Slow
up with.
roll it.
He's
Let's
not
see.
showing it to him. And that's it. Patrick Chapin defeats Budde 2-0 in the feature match area. Wow, that was good fun.
Keep us read the bone.
And thanks, Patrick, for doing some of our work for us.
Yes.
Are you ready for the next step on the hero's path? Come to Theros Game Day on October 19th and 20th and put yourself to the test in the Face the Hydra Challenge. For more information, visit wizards.com/magicmainday. All right, we're going to be bumping over to one of our other feature matches. It is going to be Reed Duke versus Camille Cornelissen. They are back at the back table there. We have Sam Black has defeated Matej Zadelkai 2-1. Nico Boni and Paul Rietzel, I believe, are still playing in their 3rd game.
And I'm interested in seeing and hearing about Camille's deck, which is apparently the beta version of the deck that you guys at Channel Fireball were playing at this tournament.
Yeah, there's a very funny story about this. Frank Karsten just started testing with us for this event, and he wanted to get some games in at the local pre-release. And he built a version of what he thought was a pretty obvious deck, which was a Nykthos red deck. This was something we had discussed a little bit, but not seriously. And he played some against Camille, who had a variety of decks that he basically beat all of with the red devotion deck. And Camille apparently just decided, hey, this deck's pretty good. I'm going to play it in the Pro Tour. So the deck that Camille is playing right here is really the first iteration of the deck that our team actually did end up playing.
Interesting. So your deck that you actually played was a heavily tuned version of this one?
Right. This is basically the deck prior to the addition of Domri Raid, and obviously green as well.
Interesting. So this will be kind of cool to get a chance to see this early version of the deck in action.
It's clearly still pretty good.
Yeah,
Camille's
it is.
pretty deep in the start of it.
Now, Reed Duke, do we know on which side of the fence he fell? Is he on the island side or the black-white?
Yes, he is on the island side.
All right.
With,
So-
I think, the exact same list as we've been saying.
As Budde?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you guys like that one, you're going to get even more of it here. And here we go. This is Game 3. We're getting down the stretch. The 5th-ranked player in the world, Reed Duke, playing against Camille Cornelissen. And that is an Ash Zealot entering the red zone. Let's see what Reed Duke can come up with here. Kibler, how does this matchup normally go?
Well, the most important card in this matchup is Master of Waves out of the blue devotion deck. Master of Waves with protection from red is very difficult for the mono red devotion deck to handle.
Okay.
It's still possible for the mono red deck to get a really explosive start, including Nykthos, and just win the game before Master of Waves can get online, or just fly over it with Stormblood Dragon. But if Master actually happens, it's very difficult to deal with.
Okay. Here's a Hammer of Perforos, no attack for Camille Cornelissen.
There is a Nykthos on Camille's side, so he is building up his devotion.
And that Nykthos already, with nothing else hitting the board, essentially ramps for 2 from Temple of the False God right now. So, I mean, you don't even need a whole lot extra to make Nykthos into an incredible card.
To start getting advantage, and then it can get downright explosive later in the game.
I mean, Nykthos is Tolarian Academy for mana symbols. If you're playing a matchup where creatures aren't dying, if things are just sitting in play, Nykthos just does absolutely gross things later in the game.
Okay. We see Thassa, God of the Sea, for Reed Duke. So he is building up really both sides of the field here, doing kind of what they want to do in the early stages.
And we see now Camille having 2 removal spells. He's got a Mizium Mortars and he's got a Magma Jet that works very well with the first strike damage from Ash Zealot. I have to think he's going to want to get Frostburn Weird off the table with Thassa staring at him. The question is, what's a higher priority? Dealing with Frostburn Weird or getting Porphyros onto the table and starting to take advantage of that?
I actually think what he wants to do is start establishing his devotion so he can get Nykthos online to generate a lot of mana. That Mizium Mortars is much more powerful when you're able to add 6 mana to your mana pool with Nykthos than when you're not.
And that's kind of one of the only ways that he can deal with Master of Waves. I mean, it doesn't kill the actual 2/1, but kicking the Mortars at least deals with all of the wave tokens.
Right, and I imagine here what he wants to do is play the Porphyros, get that online, then he's threatening to, just send in tons of damage himself for the next turn, and they're in sort of the god race, basically. Yeah,
we have a god fight here as Porphyros does hit the battlefield here. It's active, and it has haste.
Yeah,
so.
the Hammer of and the Porphyros.
They happen to work well together.
It is interesting, though, that we've seen that on both sides here. We have the Hammer, and we have Porphyros, and we have the Biden with Thassa, so I'm sure that was no mistake in R&D, Zach, but it's working.
Oh, yeah. Camille probably not wanting to sack lands anytime soon, but, Fervor, not a terrible effect with 2 red mana symbols and mana cost.
Now, Kibler, we just saw Reed Duke use the Scry ability from Thassa. How good is just that ability?
Scrying is very, very powerful. I actually think that the Scry lands are super powerful, and Thassa giving it to you every turn is super, super important. Okay. It gives you a ton of selection, and here, there are very important cards in this matchup that Reed needs. This turn, one of them being an island to actually allow him to cast these spells. Right. But being able to dig for Master of Waves, as we said, the really important card in the matchup is very crucial.
It's really interesting to me that even in a mono blue deck, several of the players that played a version of the Master of Waves deck today are still only playing like 2 or 3 Mutavaults, just because like basic island is such an important card to this deck.
When I actually saw the Mutavaults in the Star City Blue Devotion deck, I was a little surprised because I thought that it would conflict both with the ability to cast Night Veil Spectre as well as your ability to play more Nykthoses. The 4 Mutavaults obviously work very, very well with Master of Waves as well as just give you a threat that doesn't cost mana, but they can definitely mess up some of your draws.
Okay. Reed Duke thought about that turn for quite a while, ends up playing a Night Veil Spectre. That is going to activate his Thassa, but he's just going to pass the turn back, so it looks like it's going to be a defensive Thassa here.
So Camille draws another Nykthos. That actually enables that Mizium Mortars in his hand, because he's able to use his 2 mountains and his Nykthos now to generate 5 mana with his current devotion, play a second Nykthos, lose the first one, tap that one for mana, and overload Mortars, and just wipe the board.
That is incredible.
No, that's not what he chose to do, though.
Oh, he didn't want to do that. He looks like he wants to add another Ash Zealot. Do these Nykthos decks...
Oh, he still has mana. Okay, no. This is going to work anyway.
Oh, he does still have mana because he used Nykthos to catch the Ash Zealot.
Yeah, I didn't see the second Ash Zealot in his hand, but this is going to be, the second Nykthos is going to provide enough by itself to cast Mizium. This is how powerful this card is.
This is incredible.
That Ash Zealot was essentially free.
Yes.
On top of everything else.
Yes, it was. This is incredible.
Now imagine if that was Burning Tree on the side.
Right. And there it is. Kick Mortars. He's showing it to Reed Duke in case he hasn't read that card before. And down they go. Picks up the
Just
2 for 1 and kill you. And that's it. Wow. Unbelievable. So that's going to do it. Camille Cornelissen defeats Reed Duke 2-1. Incredible stuff down there, and wow, such powerful turns. Do these Nykthos decks usually culminate in one huge turn, or is it continued advantage?
Both of them, really. The ability of Nykthos to both just give you incredibly explosive individual turns, as well as give you just tons of incremental value over the course of a game is huge.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually had a number of games in this tournament in the brief period that I was actually playing in it that, I was able to do unbelievable things thanks to Nykthos. In one game, I, after activating my Ember Swallower, generated 40 mana in a single turn. Activated
4-0.
Yes,
welcome back to the booth, by the way.
4.
After sacrificing 3 lands.
After sacrificing 3 lands.
Unbelievable.
Activated Porphyros 13 times and attacked with a Stormwrath Dragon for 20.
That is amazing.
A totally fair draw.
Yeah. Welcome back to the booth, guys. Marshall Cyclid with Brian Kibler and Zach Hill. Some interesting stuff in Standard now. Some of these decks have such just robustly powerful things that they're doing. We haven't seen it like this in a while. It's been a little bit more like grindy, and then the most powerful things we've done are, you know, things like Sphinx's Revelation or something like that. And now we're doing, you know, hit you for 20s.
Well, and it's not surprising to me, actually, that like the people that are building these Nykthos decks, you know, you've seen Mahara doing some crazy stuff, you guys on CFB, Star City adding Nykthos very late to their deck. But it's been a long time, I think, since just like raw resource advantage has been very good in Standard. And I think players that have kind of came of age or whatever in recent memory and kind of modern Magic, it's easy to lose sight of how powerful just like dark ritual effects are.
Yeah.
And I mean, it turns out they're incredible.
Well, it's not just dark ritual. It's actually how people, when they first saw Dark Ritual, thought it worked. It's Dark Ritual that stays in play.
Just does it every turn.
Yeah, I would like my 3 mana every turn, but now it does. Yeah, and you know, that was one of the ones that I was chatting with you about a little earlier, Kibler, was a deck from Maharo that's a mono green version of a Nykthos deck, and you said you thought it was the most all-in Nykthos deck in the field.
I think Miharu's deck is the best deck in the field. I think that it's actually very similar to a version we were testing at one point, but dismissed because we thought it was too weak against Supreme Verdict. It has 12 mana creatures and goes all the way up to Garruk 6. And I was watching him play Table 1 earlier, and his first turn was Elvish Mystic.
Yeah.
His second turn was Elvish Mystic and Voyaging Satyr. His third turn was Garruk, draw 3 creatures. And his fourth turn put like 20 mana worth of things with Nykthos untap with Voyaging Satyr.
Which is unbelievable.
He played Burning Tree, Nylea, something else.
Pelucranos.
Pelucranos. Activate my Pelucranos. Kill your creature. Play Domery. Fight your creature. Scavenging Ooze. Kill. Eat both the creatures that I just killed with. Go.
Unbelievable.
I took a picture of it. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll get a chance to see some stuff like that. For now, though, we're going to send it back over to Richard Hagan at the news desk.
All right, thanks very much, Marshall. Welcome back to the news desk. Rich Hagan here. I'm not going to give you many results right now. In fact, I'm only going to give you one, and that is the news that at table 10, Lukas Jaklowski of the Czech Republic defeated Jonathan Hickerson by 2-1. And that means that Lukas Jaklowski is still very much live for top 8. More importantly, he's standing to my left, getting ready to do a deck tech with Brian David Marshall on a really cool deck. So here we go with another standard deck tech.